the big ideas. In this lesson, we'll review the big ideas of the Constitution and figure out what they have to do with the rule of law versus the rule of man. So our objective is to examine the major principles of the Constitution and evaluate the importance of these principles. And our central questions, or the things you'll be able to answer by the end of the lesson, are what are the major principles of the Constitution and why are they important? So remember, the Constitution is kind of like the rule book of the United States. It decides how the United States functions and lays out all of the rules for what can happen and what can't happen. So compared with other constitutions, the U.S. Constitution is actually pretty simple and not that long. It's a blueprint or a guide for government, but does not spell out every aspect of how government will function. So it's just basically a guideline. It's kind of like when you get a video game and you have the thing in the front of the video game that tells you what all the buttons do and what you can do in the video game. It's similar to that. So how does the Constitution give people the power they need to lead, meaning the government, but also make sure we are using the rule of law and not the rule of man? So remember, in some previous lessons, we looked at how people have decided that yes, we need government because people need a little bit of guidance and need to be protected and kind of put it in the right direction sometimes. But we're also afraid of people getting too powerful if we give the government too much power. Remember, we called that the rule of man. So how do we balance things? How do we give the government power, but not too much to where they can just do whatever they want? The 5 major principles are the answer to that question. They balance that power and make sure the government doesn't get too powerful. So let's go through each one by one. The first one is limited government. This means that no government is all powerful, meaning that no government has supreme power and can just do whatever they want. The Constitution specifically lists do's and don'ts, things that the government can do and things that they can't do. It respects the rule of law and follows constitutionalism, which means that we must govern according to the Constitution. So the government has to do what the Constitution says. They can't go outside of the Constitution or outside of that rule book. The next thing is representative government. In the United States, we get to vote for certain politicians to represent our views. So we get to pick the people that are in power. You can't have the whole population vote on everything, so you vote on people who share similar beliefs and allow them to vote. So we get to pick the people that are in charge and making decisions. People don't just become representatives and people that are in power. They have to earn our votes. Then after we give them to them, if they get enough, then they get that power. And the cool thing is if they do a bad job, after a few years, we can just not vote for them and they won't have power anymore. So those are 2 things. The rest of them deal with how government is split up, or how power is split up in government. So like the picture you see here represents the U.S. government. U.S. government is separated into branches. Remember, they're the executive, that's the president, the legislative, that's Congress, and the judicial, that's the Supreme Court. So the power in the U.S. government is split 3 ways into 3 branches, and each branch has different things that they can do. Which leads us to our next principle, separation of powers. Each of the 3 branches of government has its own responsibilities and powers. The founders, or the people who wrote the Constitution, hoped this would prevent any one branch from gaining too much power. So each branch has things it can and cannot do. For example, the legislative branch is the only branch that's allowed to actually make laws that affect the entire country. The executive branch is in charge of the military, and the judicial branch gets to decide if what the other branches are doing follows the Constitution or not. So all the power is kind of split up. They'll have different things they can do, and they're not allowed to do the things that the other branches can do. Checks and balances is the next one. Another cool thing about splitting up power and giving it to 3 things rather than just one person or one branch sharing it is that the branches kind of look over each other and they check. That's why they call it check. They check up on each other to make sure the other branches are doing the right things. So each branch holds some control over the other branches. For example, if the president does something wrong, Congress can check him or even impeach him. So the president's doing something wrong. Congress actually has the power to put the president on trial to decide if the president should be the president anymore. So that's another cool thing, is the branches watch over each other and make sure that the other branches aren't doing anything wrong. If they are doing something wrong, each of the branches has certain powers to stop the other branches. Last one is federalism. In the United States, we split up power even more. We don't just have national governments, we have state governments as well. So this is a middle ground between the articles and the unitary form of government. It provides a flexible system of government. So instead of the whole country being run just by Washington, D.C., and the President and Congress and the Supreme Court, we are split into states. So those states have power as well over certain parts of the country. So that just splits the power up even more to make sure that no one is getting too much power. So all these principles, the main thing that we kind of want you to remember about them is they're all set up to make sure that no one man, no one woman, or no one small group of people gets too much power. And then even them have to follow the law. So be sure to join us for live class on Tuesday and Thursday. If you have questions or need help, please contact us. Our information is right there. If you don't need help, good luck.